Good morning. I'll be presenting my talk on a prospective study of 3D navigation guided single position OLIF with posterior percutaneous fixation for the Indian patient. Introduction. Lumbar interbody fusion has demonstrated efficacy in addressing diverse degenerative lumbar conditions like spondylolisthesis, degenerative disc disease, recurrent disc herniation. Shift towards the MIS due to the demand for the shorter hospital stay, faster recovery, and it also minimizes the iatrogenic injury and it thereby shortening the operative rehabilitation duration. Uh, Objective is to assess the efficacy of single position OLIF and the accuracy of pedicle screw placement in the lateral position in patient with lumbar degenerative disorders. Overcoming the challenges of conventional OLIF. Basically, in the so this is basically what in the single position we avoid intraoperative repositioning. So that present the numerous challenges, including the increased operative room utilization time and increased complication. And we can perform the KH preparation part and the screw fixation in just a lateral decubitus position. And in fact, with the 3D assisted navigation guidance, it permits the insertion of a pedicle screw with a more accuracy without a minimal error. So what's the difference between the traditional and single position OLIF is? In the patient positioning is the most important factor. In the traditional, the interbody cage preparation is done in supine position, followed by repositioning the patient for pedicle screw fixation to prone. While in the single position, both can be done in lateral decubitus position, and so there is no need of patient repositioning. Advantage of navigation guidance is streamlined surgical workflow, reduces operative time, enhance accuracy, and without the need of intraoperative repositioning. Method is basically it's a prospective hospital-based study conducted in Service Spine Hospital and Research Institute. Inclusion criteria: all patients above 18-year age group with lumbar degenerative condition, operated with OLIF, and could be level is L2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. Patient with multi-level pathology were excluded and with a history of previous retroperitoneal surgery. Procedure is basically the intraoperative CT were taken under navigation guidance and the tracker was put on the posterior iliac crest. Transpedicular guide were placed at the operative level at the lateral position, and the entry were more lateral as per the institutional protocol. Oblique lumbar retroperitoneal approach that was used to dock the retractor. Preparation of the disc followed by the insertion was OLIF was done under navigation. So what are the things we assess is the cage position, disc height, the foraminal height, and the segmental lordosis. So here's a case 1. We can see the preoperative lumbar degenerative condition, and that was done in the lateral decubitus position with a good restoration of the foraminal height. And so the sample size were 26. So we have a good restoration of the disc height, foraminal height, and we have achieved a good segmental lordosis. The mean surgical time was 182.53 plus minus 51 plus 26. The time is more because initially 5 cases it was a learning curve for us, so we took a lot of time in that, but we didn't exclude to get a good result. So we have included that. The mean OLIF time was 131.28. Mean blood loss was 66.15 plus minus 31.75. That's a hospital stay. Total screws placed were 104. 3 had a medial breach. 22 has a lateral breach. Case position 21 has it was in the middle zone, 3 were in the anterior, 2 were the posterior. 43% increase in the disc height and 14% increase in the foraminal height. Complication: 3 patient has upper end plate damage, 1 has rupture of the segmental vessel during disc preparation, 7 has a transient post-operative left thigh pain that resolved over 6 weeks. So basically, single position OLIF if offer a potential benefit in terms of surgical efficacy. It minimizes complication associated with patient repositioning for posterior instrumentation, thus saves a lot of OD time. It reduces blood loss, shorter duration, and shorter hospital stay. So basically, the O-arm navigated single position OLIF, it decreases the surgical and operating room utilization with a good accuracy of posterior instrumentation. Limitation: it has a shorter sample size, no control group, steep learning curve. Conclusion is basically 3D navigated OLIF performed in single position is safe technique which eliminate the time associated with intraoperative repositioning. That's one of the most important factor, and it maintains pedicle screw accuracy. Our accuracy was 97.2%, and it also decreases the intraoperative radiation exposure. That is also one of the important factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sandesh, to stick to the time. My question to you for this paper, what was the comparative screw out rate when you did it with two positions and with a single position? Here you have around 3% screws going out when you do a lateral single position OLIF.
Yes,
So
sir.
when you did your OLIF in lateral, then flip the patient to a prone position and then fix the screw, what was the difference in the screw out rate?
Uh, we like it was mostly the duration. Like we just
How different was the duration?
so we can see, sir, we need to first the cage preparation was just in the supine. Then once it is done, we
You can tell us the time difference, ballpark figure. It saved an hour, half an hour?
it saves around 20-25 minutes, sir.
20, 25
25
minutes.
minutes.
And you said 3% of your screws were out.
Yes,
So the
sir.
previous Tavia papers have an accuracy of 99%. So there was a 2% extra.
The thing was because we have a very limited case sample size in this, so in that it was.
So Umesh, you also do this procedure. Your take on this?
Well, I don't believe the screw accuracy rates differ whether the patient is in supine or lateral position or whether the patient is prone, whether it is done in single stage or two stage. I think it depends on the navigation accuracy and your assessment of the accuracy of navigation intraoperatively in case of unstable listhesis, in case. So usually what we do is, I don't know what was the sequence of the procedure.
Question over. Do you take your O-arm spin after doing your OLIF, or you do your OLIF under navigation and then you put your screws?
No. First we put OLIF under navigation, then shoot.
So once you have put in a large cage, OLIF you will put a large cage.
Yes, sir.
The space, the spatial orientation of your proximal vertebra is already different compared to your anchor there. So how do you compensate for, say, you have increased the disc height from 7 to 14? The 7 millimeter error is your navigation is going to show your screw going into the in a different place. So how do you take a second spin? Or
we just go for a second spin, sir.
Second spin. Umesh, your take on this?
Well, ideally the easiest way and to reduce the operative time further, it is better to put off the guide wires in the first stage itself. So we put the guide wires, we don't put the screws, only if any screw based manipulation is required. We put off the screws in the beginning only. Otherwise, we just put the guide wires, then come anteriorly, do the OLIF, and again go back. And at that particular time, you already have the guide wires in place. Anyways, you will take one C-arm shot to control the guide wire rather than to see the accuracy of your screw placement. It's
any special precautions you take when you put your tracker on the iliac crest and you're working on OLIF with your team working around?
The angulation of the perk pin placement is very important because otherwise it interferes with the upper screw trajectory. If your alignment is more parallel to the floor, so it has to be very oblique. The angulation of the perk pin and the frame should be more than the angulation of the screw. So that is when the screw navigation frame of the screwdriver or the tap is not going to interfere with the thing. And the second thing is to adjust the camera. So when we are moving anterior and posterior, and especially when we are putting the dependent or the lower screw, the camera has to come from away, as well as when we are doing from OLIF, the camera will move towards the other side. So the positioning the camera to visualize the instruments is also very important.
Dr. Sandesh, coming to you. In osteoporotic patients, what special precautions would you take? Because iliac pin, a single iliac pin is going to have a rotational issue, especially in the elderly osteoporotic. And in Ahmedabad, that would be the definition for everybody above 55.
Yes, sir.
Women. So what do you do? Do you use a double pin tracker, or do you augment how?
Like we hence far has not encountered, but I feel we can put a double anchor that.
Vishal, give some chance to the audience also.
Yeah, well, Dr. Sharma, yeah, please.
So my question is, like there are two pedicles now, one more towards the roof and the one which is toward the floor. So probably it's easier to put the screws in the pedicles which are more toward the roof because we are going downward.
Yes, sir.
But the ones which are toward the floor to come medially, like we are coming from floor towards the roof.
Yes, sir.
So these screws which were out, do you know like which screws were sort of out, the ones which were more towards the roof or the one which were more towards the floor?
The screws which was more towards the floor, that.
Because it will be really difficult to get that trajectory, right?
Right, yes, sir. In this single position.
Yeah.
That was one of the challenges.
So, Umesh, any tips for how to prevent that? We'll take one last.
Naturally, yes, putting the dependent screw is more difficult than putting the screws on the top. The angulation is different. You are working with a different angle. You are standing on the side, allowing the camera to visualize your instrument. Your mallet is not in the right
So,
position.
how do you reduce the errors?
So we reduce the errors basically by, of course, we have to take precautions. So what we do is we hold the frame with one hand and tap the mallet in the reverse way. So what happens is, and then we should always check not while hammering, which is the basic principles for navigation, but while leave the hand and then check the navigation thing, because otherwise when we are using the dependent, initially we also observed that we are putting more force to hold it in place. We are afraid that that's going to fall down, especially when choosing the entry point. So it's very important that we don't apply pressure on the handle. That is also going to interfere with the navigation accuracy. And in some cases, especially L4, L3, where there is a sloping angle between the facet and the transverse process, the chances of slippage is more. So in those cases, obviously we have to select our entry point. We have to get the correct anchor first at the entry point and then only proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Umesh. We would love to pick your brains on this. We'll move to the next topic, Dr. Mahendra Thevar. He'll be speaking on navigation-assisted endoscopic excision of lumbar vertebral osteoid osteoma in a 21-year-old male. Male is a video presentation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Dr. Mahendra from Central Railways Baikala Hospital. Under the guidance of Dr. Ayush Sharma and Dr. Shubham, I'm here to present navigated assisted endoscopic excision for osteoid osteoma. Thank you. My objective was to demonstrate precise, effective, with the use of a Zyme 3D spin and a BrainLab navigation system and a Revo endoscopic system to do this case. So treatment options for excision of an osteoid osteoma, we have surgical option, excision, open surgery, radiofrequency ablation, and CT-guided cryoablation. Limitation of traditional methods, inaccurate localization, excessive bone removal, spinal instability, neural structure risk, and lack of histopathology. Navigation-assisted endoscopy is an innovative, precise, minimally invasive. A 20-year-old fella came to us with a chronic localized pain, mostly more at night, and subsided with a NSAID aspirin, and no neurodeficit, no constitutional symptoms. His X-ray was inconclusive, and we went for another investigations for CT scan and MRI. This was his X-ray findings. And this was his MRI, sagittal vision and axial views. And that's how we identify he had a L2 lamina osteoid osteoma very close to the neurostructures. So after this diagnosis, we planned for navigation-assisted endoscopic excision under GA. The patient was positioned in prone position, and live intraoperative CT 3D spin was taken with the help of Zyme system, which we have in our institute. And post that, the arrays of navigation system, BrainLab system array was kept at L2, spinous process, and contralateral approach was taken. This is the intraoperative image of our, with the probe of the BrainLab system, with emerging the image with the intraoperative CT scan pictures. This is a sagittal view. And this was our endoscopic view. This was a post-drilling and excision of the endoscopic view, and this with the RF ablations pictures. And yeah, the samples were collected and sent to histopathology to confirm the diagnosis. And you can see a bone and expanded tissues to confirm the disease. This was his pre-op picture, and this was his post-op images. So with navigation assisted, we can target the lesion exactly where we want, and with minimal invasive, we could achieve a good result for him. And he was discharged on the same day, and it's been one year for him, and he's doing good. So my conclusion is navigation-assisted endoscopic excision is safe, effective, and innovative, provides both diagnostic and therapeutic benefits, superior alternative to open surgery and RFA in selective spinal osteoblastoma cases. So this is a video demonstration. How we did. Audio.
Back pain which was not getting the patient, which revealed a osteoid osteoma in L2 lamina. As the patient
Sorry.
This V was symptomatic. Contralateral approach from the tumor planned for this case. A contralateral approach from the right side was decided and the navigation was set up as shown in the picture with the tracker being placed at the L2 spinous process. A 3D imaging was first done using a 3D C-arm and the image was fed into the navigation system. Once the image has been fed to the system, a accuracy of navigation was also confirmed depending on the landmark which was already visible from the exposure of the L2 spinous process.
2 minutes.
Can you take us to the main video, please?
Once the setup was ready, the navigation
So this is how we, with the help of navigation, intraoperative combination with arrays, we could exactly identify the lesion, and contralateral endoscopic approach, we could directly go there and excise the tumor.
or as you can see in this video, once the drilling was completed under direct visualization, the nidus of the osteoid osteoma was removed. As you can see here, a disc forceps was introduced into the drill canal and the nidus was removed under vision, making sure that no other anatomical structure was touched or damaged during this procedure. The samples and the nidus was sent for histopathological examination.
Thank you, sir.
Blunt instruments